This channel does not promote or promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for educational purpose only.
Another day, another story. I decided to ignore Jack. Since I knew he was keeping a man in his house dressed as a dog, I figured that was my safest bet. Besides, it was almost 2 a.m. He'd just assume I was asleep, right? I know you're in there, Amir. Open up. He sounded angry. Really angry. I shrunk against the door, holding my breath, trying not to make a sound. Amir. He knocked for a few more minutes. Then, finally, I heard his footsteps retreat off the porch. I stood there for several more minutes, in case he came back. Then I checked all the locks and crept back upstairs. For the rest of the night I tossed and turned, trying to figure out what to do. I should just call the police. But what if it's consensual? What if that man, for whatever reason, agreed to pretend to be Jack's dog? Does he self-identify as a dog? Is it a furry thing? But then I thought of how angry Jack sounded. And when dawn broke, I called the cops. They didn't believe me at first. But finally they agreed to go over to Jack's and check it out. I ran over to the living room window and parted the blinds, staring out across the street at Jack's house. By the time the police car pulled up, I could hear Mandy's steps above me. But I remained glued to the window, watching. 2 officers, a tall woman and a plump man, exited the vehicle and stepped up onto the porch. I saw the woman raise her fist and knock. I waited, holding my breath. But as the door cracked open, I heard it, clear as day. Barking. Jack began talking to the officers, his expression darkening. And then a blur of brown and white fur shot out. My jaw dropped as the dog leapt up onto the officers. A pink tongue shot out and it began licking them, letting out happy yelps. No. It was a real dog. It had to be. It was considerably smaller than the 2 officers. No way an adult man could fit in there. And it was barking and licking and jumping around. The dog suit I'd seen yesterday hadn't even been able to open its mouth. What are you doing? I turned around to see Mandy there, staring at me. Oh. I sat down and explained everything to her that happened last night. But I could tell, she didn't believe me. I couldn't really blame her. After all, she could see a very live, very real dog jumping around Jack and the police officer. So you're saying you think, in the middle of the night, he let the dog man go and adopted a real one? I know it sounds crazy, but it does sound crazy. And you shouldn't go calling the cops on our neighbors, unless something really bad is happening. If our house is on fire, or if someone breaks in, you think Jack is gonna want to help us? But I saw it. It was a person. I swear. You were drunk. You probably just saw the dog jumping up while Jack was behind him or something, so it looked like a hand sticking out. Mandy, I swear. She shook her head and walked out of the room. Soon after, the officers came by and confirmed it. Jack was in possession of a large, very friendly, 100% real collie dog. That son of a bitch, I whispered, staring out the window as they pulled away. I knew the truth. Even if everyone else thought I was crazy, I know what I saw. That's why, later that night, when I saw Jack's car pull out, I snuck out of the house and crept into his backyard. Now that I remembered the security cameras, I was careful to forge a path that avoided them. But as soon as I stepped up onto the deck, arf, arf, arf. The collie was scratching at the back door, barking at me. SSSSSHHH. I tried the door. Locked, of course. Swearing, I made my way around to the side door. It was locked too. I'll have to try tomorrow. Maybe I can come over for more cookies. I asked the police to keep my name out of the whole thing. Maybe he isn't certain it was me. I shook my head. Yeah, right. Of course he knows it was me. I started towards the front of the house. Thump. I turned around. A rattling, metallic sound, and then, thump. It was coming from the basement. I ran over to the Bilko doors. They were locked, but with a padlock. Thankfully, I had a pair of bolt cutters in my garage. I crept back home, grabbed the bolt cutters, and made my way back into the yard. With a swift downward motion, snap, the door was unlocked. I lifted the door open. 2 black, glinting eyes stared back at me. It was him. The man in the dog suit, sitting in the center of the basement. A collar wrapped around his neck, the chain fastened to one of the support holes. I grabbed the bolt cutters and ran down the stairs. "I'm going to get you out of here," I whispered, rushing towards him. No reaction. He just stared at me, still as a statue, his plastic dog fur shining in the light from the one bare bulb on the ceiling. A chill crept over me. Why wasn't he reacting more? He didn't have to act like a dog anymore. Jack wasn't around. Why wasn't he calling for help? Or thanking me? Or something? Why was he just staring at me through the dog suit? I crouched on the cold cement floor, positioning the bolt cutters across the chain. "I'm going to set you free. Hold still." Zeep. A hand shot out of the dog's chest and grabbed me by the arm. "Hey!" But the hand only tightened around my bicep. I tried to tug free, but the nails dug into my skin. "Let me go!" I shouted, but the hand was pulling me in. Towards the dog's lifeless, glassy eyes, the plastic nose, the painted mouth. And then I heard something. A whisper. "Behind you." I whipped around. And my blood ran cold. A silhouette sat perched above the basement's doors, peering down at us. Jack. I grabbed the bolt cutters and squeezed. Snap. The chain broke in two. The dogman leapt up and, with amazing speed for wearing a heavy costume, bounded up the stairs towards Jack. But Jack was too fast. Before he could slip past, he grabbed the dog by the arms and pushed him back down the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. He was still at the bottom. I grabbed the bolt cutters and ran up the steps. In one quick motion, I swung them at Jack. He ducked. "You don't know what you're doing, Amir. You don't know the whole story. You're keeping a guy locked in your basement and forcing him to wear a dog costume." I raised the bolt cutters. "Amir, just listen to me. He's not who you think he..." Thwack. The bolt cutters hit the side of his head. Not that hard. I wasn't swinging to kill. But Jack crumpled to the ground, clutching his head, groaning in pain. And in that moment, I bounded down the stairs and grabbed one of the dogman's paws. "Here, come on, quick," I whispered, pulling at the fake paw. Slowly, he rose. One human hand popped out of his chest. Then a second. I helped him undo the clasps on the belly and under the arms. Then, the costume slowly crumpled away from him. Then I was staring at an adult man, taller than myself, wearing a border collie mask. But he didn't reach up to pop off the mask. No. He just stood there, absolutely still, staring down at me with those lifeless, glassy dog eyes. Plastic brown fur shining in the light. Something about this felt wrong. I backed away. Backed up the steps and out onto the lawn. His eyes never left mine. He turned his head, slowly, to watch me go. And then, when I'd gotten about 10 feet from the basement door, he bolted up the steps and ran across the lawn, for the woods. But when he got to the tree line, he stopped. He turned around. Slowly pulled off the mask. And then he was staring at me, grinning with a smile of yellowed, rotten teeth. "Thank you," he whispered. And then he disappeared into the darkness. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because I recognized that face. I'd seen it on the news. A man who'd been convicted of stalking and murdering 3 women. Who then escaped from prison, earlier this year. And the pieces clicked into place. His name, if I remembered correctly, it was Sam Baker. And Jack, he was Jack Baker. Jack slowly pulled himself up, groaning in pain. "Amir," he said, staring into my eyes. "Did you just set my brother free?"